It's Friday, which means it's time for another exciting episode of Ask Us Anything on the Goggler Podcast. If my voice sounds terrible, it's because I'm losing it slowly. So I thought Bahir and I should record this episode before it goes away. Bahir, our first question for this week is from @MyTipsyTurvy, who follows up on his previous question to us. Since we're talking about Section 31, which was a movie that was supposed to be a TV show, let's flip my question from the last time. What are your thoughts on TV shows that were retooled to become movies? And what is the best movie that was supposed to be a TV show? And why is it Serenity?
Yeah, I've got nothing to say.
So there are quite a few notable examples, actually. El Camino was supposed to be a follow-up series that focused on Jesse Pinkman, but it was retooled to become a 2-hour movie instead. The Many Saints of Newark was supposed to be a prequel TV series. Season 4 of Deadwood never happened, and then it was kind of shrunk into a movie to wrap up the show. The 21 Jump Street movie was actually supposed to be a rebooted TV series, which was then reconfigured to be an action comedy film. And if you've seen the original 21 Jump Street, it is nothing like the movies. Like, the movies are funny and action-packed, and the original 21 Jump Street was like super fucking serious. Like,
No TV show at the time was gritty, but it was moody.
I think those are also my favorites. Like, I loved Many Saints of Newark. I thought it was very, very good. I thought the Deadwood movie was okay. I missed the fact that it was not a season 4 because I fucking loved that show. I don't know. You are a big Breaking Bad fan. What did you think about El Camino? Did it scratch the itch?
My only problem with El Camino was that I thought the Breaking Bad TV show ended so well that it felt like
unnecessary.
Yeah, it felt really unnecessary. And I think that was my big problem with it. Sure, some people will say it scratches an itch, but I think because I followed Breaking Bad, the only thing it did was made me miss the TV show. And that's not what I want or need from a sequel/TV movie. Like, for example, the Entourage movie. Only thing it did was made me miss the early seasons of Entourage. And I think that's always the risk you run by trying to do a movie at the end of your TV show.
I mean, with the Breaking Bad example, it is a movie follow-up at the end of a TV show, much like Entourage, much like what happens with Star Trek. I think with Many Saints of Newark, it was supposed to be a standalone thing, right? Because Gandolfini had died as well, and so the only way to go forward is to go backwards and do a prequel series. And I think Section 31 was like that. It was supposed to be a spin-off series, so it's quite different from what El Camino was. But
yeah,
Section 31 is terrible. And I think a lot of the time, these things don't work because it's a lot. Like, there are a lot of ideas that they then try to cram into like an hour and a half, or they kind of strip away important things to make it work as a 2-hour piece. And sometimes things that are conceived as TV shows work best as TV shows because you need that space.
Space is the right thing, right? So if you're going to make a movie at the end of your TV show, you have to decide what is important. Think about all the TV shows that you love that have ended and what 90 added minutes to that would be. You know what I mean? Like, what is the last 90 minutes of New Girl going to be? What is the last 90 minutes of The X-Files going to be?
And I'm curious as to what the last 90 or 120 minutes of Community is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Because, look, I love Community, but that final season
on Yahoo, I didn't even finish it.
Right? Yeah, was terrible.
Yeah.
That felt so forced. The problem was it really didn't use the characters the way they were supposed to be used at the first couple of seasons.
I remember watching that final season on Yahoo, and it felt like nobody's hearts were in it.
Yeah, it didn't even feel like the writers' hearts were in it.
And I think the difference is, based on the interviews I've seen, everyone is really excited to do this movie.
Sure.
So maybe the hearts are in it. Maybe we're going to get something better. But you're absolutely right. What is the last 90 minutes of something? What is it going to add? And is it going to take away from something amazing?
Community is a perfect example, right? Do you want to go back and see them still in college? Do you want to come back this many years later and see them married and having what is that 90 minutes going to be? What is that last send off to these characters that we all love? That is the big question. Off your list, I think the two that I loved and regret, I guess in some ways, would be season 4 of Deadwood, because I'd have loved to have seen that as a TV show, and the 21 Jump Street thing. Like, that would have been a great TV show.
The reason why the movie works is because it is something different.
Yes,
It
that
is
also true.
almost like an homage to the TV show, and then they decided to do something fun with it, right? So, yeah, I think that's why it works. It wasn't trying to cram the same theme, mood, feel of the TV show into 1 2-hour movie, which I think would have been a mistake.
At AdeleXADR asks, what are your Oscar predictions, and who or what else do you think should have been nominated?
Hold on, Adele, we're not going to get into the predictions because we're going to do an episode of the podcast on that later this month, closer to the Oscars. And we're waiting because it's been such a fucking shit show with like all of the stuff with Emilia Perez and stuff. Who knows what is going to happen in the next 3 weeks? So
Yeah.
let's wait it out because things can change. All right. As for snubs, I think Dahome is a documentary I saw at the Tokyo International Film Festival, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it won an award there, but I genuinely thought it was going to get Best Original Documentary Feature. And it did not get recognized, but it is fucking amazing. It is available on digital, Bahir, and I think you need to watch it. But it is about a lot of things, but it's also about artifacts in museums and where they belong, and all of the politics and social stuff surrounding it. It's very, very well done.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The other documentary, of course, is the Will Ferrell documentary, and I genuinely thought that was going to get a nomination, but Netflix is very malangla when it comes to the Oscars. I think they've rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, so they always get overlooked. As for movies, Civil War, I think, is the biggest oversight, especially given everything that's going on in America right now. I think that would be the ultimate nomination, and it was a big oversight. Also, it was just a fantastic film.
Yeah.
I thought Challenges was overlooked for best score because that Trent Reznor Atticus Ross score was amazing. I was okay with the movie. I didn't love it as much as a lot of people. However, I thought that the score really fucking made that film. I thought Furiosa was overlooked for best sound and best makeup. The sound on that movie I can still remember, just like with the original Mad Max Fury Road. I think Denis Villeneuve was overlooked for best director for Dune. I think Denzel was overlooked for Gladiator 2 because he carried that movie on his back. Edward Berger for Conclave, overlooked for best director. And I think Pamela Anderson for The Last Showgirl. I haven't seen The Last Showgirl. I thought she was going to get nominated because the Oscars love that kind of comeback story, right? But maybe they went, oh, okay lah, we've got Demi Moore as our comeback story. So 1 instead of 2 lah.
If you pay enough attention, or if you've paid any attention to the Oscars or the true story of the Oscars, I think you will realize that all of it's a game. It's all political. Just like how Santa isn't real, the Oscars don't really guarantee much in terms of anything. It's a level of quality, but then it becomes a PR spin game. So that's always the problem.
That is a very recent thing. And I'm going to tie that into our next question by Tush6303, who asks, do you think all of the winners of the Best Picture at the Oscars would be classified as some of the greatest movies of all time? If yes, which movie, which won Best Picture in the last 20 years, would be in that list? If no, what is the point of the Oscars? So I want to answer that second bit first because it ties into what you were saying, Bahir. I think it's a very recent phenomenon. There's a fantastic book that is out about the history of the Oscars, which I've been reading. And a lot of this can also be blamed on Harvey fucking Weinstein. Because Miramax at the time didn't have as much money as the other studios. And they wanted to play the Oscar game. And so it was Weinstein that started doing screeners to everybody, like sending out screeners, like making sure the actors and actresses in their contracts were available for every fucking event and interview and getting them out there and playing the PR game. There were swag bags. There were all sorts of stuff. And I think Harvey Weinstein played this PR hype game when it came to getting his movies nominated and even winning. I love Judi Dench, but that she won Best Supporting Actress for Shakespeare in Love when her screen time was like 3 minutes or something ridiculous is just what? And a lot of that had to do with the PR game that Weinstein was playing. So in recent years, I think it's been rare that the Oscars have broken away from that communication strategy by studios, right? It's very rare that something unexpected suddenly wins. I don't know how unexpected it was, but I think for me, it was unexpected that Parasite did so well at the Oscars. I just didn't think they would give it to a foreign film.
I think the thing that people have to remember is that the Oscars is humans voting for, if not their friends, for people they love and respect in some way or another.
Which is why you always hear the general refrain of, oh, it's their time.
Yes.
It's like they may not win for their best performance because they've been overlooked so many times, but then Leonardo DiCaprio will win for Revenant.
Yes.
When I think he should have won for Wolf of Wall Street.
And some people will decree that. Some people will say like, oh, that's not how these things should be. It should be based on the film at the time. And those people are absolutely correct. However, this is just how humans are. You have to accept that, right?
To answer the first part of his question, looking over the list of winners over the last 20 years, despite all of these criticisms, I have to say that more often than not, the Oscars do end up picking incredibly good movies. They may not necessarily be my favorite movie of that year or the thing I thought should have won, but it's very rare that I completely disagree with that choice. Over the last 20 years, if I look at that list, I can name Nomadland, which I disagree with, Green Book, Argo, because Argo was also up against Lincoln, and I thought Lincoln was the far superior movie. I also disagree with The King's Speech. Phenomenal movie, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed that film. But I don't think anyone's going to remember that movie in 20 years. And I think Crash. I like the handful of movies that I totally disagree with. Like, I'm like, given everything on that list, you picked Crash?
Right.
But yet again, Crash is not a bad movie.
Yes.
And most of the things on the list I do agree with. I think Oppenheimer, yes. Everything Everywhere All at Once for sure. Coda, we called it. After we even watched the movie, we were like, this thing is in the running for Best Picture. Spotlight, Birdman, The Artist. I mean, The Artist was so different. I know a lot of people disagree with that choice, but when was the last time you saw a fucking silent movie in black and white with singing and dancing kind of thing? And it was so different. No Country for Old Men, The Departed, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. For me, all three movies should have won, but that's just me.
You and me both, yeah. I mean, I tend to get a little tired with the Oscar conversation only because I only use it as a guide to look at the movies that I haven't seen.
That people consider to be great.
I really don't care who wins, but I just want to know, oh, I've seen all 10 of the shortlisted films or whatever.
And the same goes for this Malaysian preoccupation with the Oscars as well. For me, if a Malaysian movie ever were to win an Oscar, it is merely a recognition that someone outside of the country thinks what you're doing is good.
Yeah.
I've already recognized what I love, and I think a lot of Malaysians have as well. The Oscar is pretty meaningless for the audience at large. If anything, the Oscar means more to the actors and the producers and the screenwriters and the directors because that's what gets them guaranteed work sometimes in the future.
Yes, correct.
But I was going to ask you, Bahir, of the last 20 years, if you look at that list, what is your favorite movie from that list of Best Picture winners of the last 20 years?
Look, I love Return of the King. The Lord of the Rings is just like...
I'm going to remove The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I was going to say. I was going to remove it.
Even for me, that's like... That trilogy is like perfect for me.
It's too obvious, right?
Yeah.
Of that 20, I think the one that moved me the most, and I don't have a soul or a heart, was Coda. I think Coda's story was fantastic. Coda's performances were beautiful. So for me, everything there was great. Like, Everything Everywhere All at Once was exciting.
Yes.
The story was quirky. Michelle Yeoh's performance was Michelle Yeoh's performance. Everybody's performance was pretty much what you expect. Everything Everywhere All at Once wasn't a surprise to me personally. However, Coda was the one that made me sit down and want to live in that moment a little longer, right? Like, I think Coda's effect on me was such that I needed the entire closing credits of that film to sort of compose myself and get out of that movie's world, which none of the other films sort of do for me.
By that standard, for me, it will be The Shape of Water. Exact same thing. Just completely moved me. Stunning, beautiful. It had the right amount of sci-fi quirk for me.
Yeah.
And then
Also that soundtrack.
the soundtrack is so good.
I still listen to that soundtrack. That
Yes.
theme song. Oh God.
And same, I had to sit through the credits. I was just dumbstruck throughout those credits. I was so excited when they finally released that in cinemas in Malaysia. I never thought it was coming to Malaysia, and I remember watching on the big screen. I was so happy. And back then, got the chance to speak to Del Toro, which was a huge deal.
Fantastic. At JumperJacks86 asks, the debacle of This Ends With Us seems to have overtaken the Depp Heard fiasco. What's your unbiased take? Can I just preempt this by saying we're two men in our 40s about to answer a question about potential sexual harassment? Let's just take that into context.
I think we can give an unbiased take because one, we have no skin in the game, and two, I have no particular feelings for either side.
That's true.
It's not like I'm a huge fan of either party, right? And I feel personally betrayed by what happened.
Yeah.
I think, personally, unbiased take, I think it's a shit show.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, a lot of this stuff should be unsurprising because the smear campaign that Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's pretty commonplace in Hollywood. Like, these PR guys and spin doctors have done worse, and they do it all the time. There's a fantastic movie called Wag the Dog, in which one of them is hired to kind of work with the president of the United States and fake a war. That came out, 20 years ago?
Yeah, more
than 20 years ago. And it's very commonplace. And I think what the charges she has made has done is maybe highlight this factor to the broader public who aren't that interested in the ongoings of Hollywood. As for the he said, she said stuff, we may never know the truth. But I say it's a shit show because I think one thing Hollywood hates is drama and trouble, despite the fact that they kind of work in drama and trouble. I think the blowback is going to be on the both of them. I think Justin Baldoni has a long ladder to climb back up with regards to his career. And I think a lot of people are going to see Blake Lively as being troublesome. And so therefore, they may not want to work with her in the future. She has Ryan Reynolds, who is a huge boon and a huge plus on her side because people like him in Hollywood. The irony, of course, with all of this, if you've been following the cases, if you look at all the commentary on TikTok or Instagram Reels, if you look at the posts that have come up. So Amazon recently put a poster of the sequel to A Simple Favor with Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. And they were promoting the fact that the movie is going to launch at SXSW, I think, and that they gave a release date. All of the comments, I would say the vast majority of the comments are anti-Blake Lively. What's interesting about that is, I was scrolling through, just anecdotally, the vast majority of them are women as well. So for some reason, they don't like her as a person. And I think that clouds their judgment of the truth of the matter, which we don't know what it is. So it's a real shit show. And we were hearing rumblings of this, not the sexual harassment claims, but the rumblings of how she had taken over the movie, how there was trouble on set. All of that stuff was kind of happening in the background. And then it kind of died off because the movie did so well at the box office. And honestly, if you want my opinion, I think this came up again because the movie did so well at the box office.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was exactly what I was going to say. I think we were talking about it when we watched the thing. I will say, caveat, like you've repeated, we don't know what happened. We may never know what happened, right? This may just be one of those things that go away. It just might get settled and essentially it just ends in a tie. However, I'm always suspect of the timing of these things because this came up right after the movie sort of essentially closed off its box office. People were wondering about a sequel and etc., etc., etc. And
I think Sony made clear that they wanted a sequel.
And here is the inside baseball. It's not just that Sony wants a sequel. And you can write off Justin Baldoni's character easily. We've seen the film. You can easily write him out of that movie. However, he owns the rights to the movie.
Yes.
And I think that is the big question. If he has the rights, it means he has to be involved in it in some way. Sure, he may not have to write the script. He doesn't have to direct it. He could just be an executive producer, get his money and walk away. But then the question is, do you want to give him your money? So for me, there is potentially a bigger thing here. If what Blake Lively is accusing Baldoni and his team, his producers, his PR team has done is true, that is terrible, and I think Justin Baldoni needs to be run out of town. However, if Justin Baldoni's version is the correct one, then Blake Lively essentially just attempted to ruin a man's life.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's bad too. Because it's not just you accusing someone of lying, you accusing someone of not showing up on set, or accusing an actor of peeing in bottles. This is saying this man is not a good person. And that's a whole different argument.
Also, I think when it comes to stories like this, they get a lot of attention because they involve famous people. But when it comes to stories like this, I think the old adage of follow the money really comes into play. I do genuinely believe that people who are that rich and powerful operate on a different level than the rest of us. And I think our standards of morality don't really apply to them. Or at least they don't think it does, which is why they behave the way they do.
It's the kind of thing where, like, we're not talking about some up-and-coming actress from Michigan. It's Blake fucking Lively. If these things were happening on set or during production, it could have been stopped. This suit could have come much sooner.
That's what confounds me. Also because I genuinely believe she's one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. Not because of her career, because she hasn't had very much of a career following Gossip Girl. But her relationships with Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift put her in those echelons of power. And so I still feel there's a lot more to this story. And I think with the way it's going, we're going to be hearing a lot of it over the next year.
I don't want to hear it anymore.
The drama is getting very boring, but yes.
Although I will say, Justin Baldoni's move of setting up a website with his...
all the text messages and everything, yeah.
I think that's a power move. Like,
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Ed Sid Takyudin asks, firstly, I've been a big fan of you guys ever since your time on radio. Thank you very much. You've managed to find a good balance between highbrow and lowbrow in your reviews, and I feel like I'm listening to a bunch of close friends talking. So don't take this the wrong way when I ask, do you guys have any movie podcast recommendations in a similar vein? I need something to tide me over while waiting for your episodes to drop.
Come on, Sid. We're doing an episode a day, man.
Man, we're trying, buddy. We're trying.
We're
I
trying.
don't know if we can
Dude,
drop
we're
episodes
trying.
any faster.
It's four episodes a week is yeah. I mean, sure. Okay, I guess you want more.
But I feel you. I too listen to a bunch of podcasts. I have to say though, I don't know about Bahir. I tend not to listen to too many review podcasts.
Same.
Or I listen to them after I've done our review because I don't want that getting in the way of my own thoughts and being influenced by someone else's arguments, especially if they make very good arguments. But the one review podcast that I do listen to religiously is Commode and Mayo's Take, which is Mark Commode and Simon Mayo. They've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I absolutely love them. And I've been listening to them for so long that I get all the inside jokes, and I love Mark Commode. I don't necessarily agree with him on all of his reviews, but I think all of his arguments are very sound, and I like the way he reviews movies. So Commode and Mayo's Take is my go-to review podcast. And then there are a whole bunch of other movie-related podcasts that I listen to. You Must Remember This and Hollywood Gold are two very good podcasts if you want to know the inside story. So You Must Remember This takes on all of the old forgotten stories of Hollywood. And then Hollywood Gold actually speaks to producers and screenwriters. So they're not talking to actors, but they interview people behind the scenes. Sure, sometimes it can get a little gossipy, but it's Hollywood. And you get all of these insider takes on how movies are made and what works and why something didn't work, etc. I also like Brett Goldstein's Films to Be Buried With, which is a show where he speaks to a different person and he kind of presupposes that they've just died. And what are the movies that kind of reflect their life? And a related but unrelated podcast that I listen to is called The Rest is Entertainment with Marina Hyde and Richard Osman. And they cover everything. They cover TV, movies, literature, music. And that's kind of like their insider take. Because Marina Hyde's a TV writer as well. Richard Osman writes books and he hosts game shows on television. And they've been in the British entertainment industry for years. And you get an insider take on how things work. Like Marina Hyde was a writer on HBO's The Franchise. So she will give you that insider look on how writers' rooms work. And that's pretty fascinating too. So those are kind of like my favorite podcasts or go-to podcasts.
Yeah. I was putting together the list as well, and I realized that mine's more business leaning, which I guess is
Right, the
quite
business of movies.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of podcasts that I listen to a lot. A couple from KCRW. One's called The Business with Kim Masters. She's a editor at large for The Hollywood Reporter. She's done some great writing. The other KCRW one is The Treatment with Elvis Mitchell.
Yep.
So he specifically speaks to the writers and the producers of a film to talk about how that movie got made, essentially, right? I think that is always an interesting thing to look at. Jeff Goldsmith's got one called the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith, and he only talks to writers. He will break down scenes, he will break down scripts, and that is a beautiful thing. My last one is a bit more like a weekly catch up on what's going on in the business in Hollywood. Sort of moves and studio things and studio updates, that kind of thing. So it's called The Town with Matt Bellany. He runs, or maybe he's one of the founders of Puck newsletter, I think. So those are sort of very businessy stuff, which I really like. If you want another fun one, I haven't listened to them in a while. I don't know if they're still going, but there was one called How Did This Get Made?
Yes, it's still going, I think.
Is it still going?
Yeah. That's with the guys from The League, right?
So yeah, it's a podcast called How Did This Get Made? Paul Scheer sort of leads it with a bunch of his friends and other comedians and actors. Essentially, they talk about bad movies and just ask themselves, how the hell did this movie get made? It's also pretty fun.
So we hope that's a big enough list. What we'll do is we'll compile that list for you and drop you a DM as well.
At Franzlo asks, hey guys, with Star Wars Celebration coming in real soon, what are you most excited about? And are there any celebrities that you're stoked to see and have a photo up with if you have the chance? Uma's got a list.
So we're going to Star Wars Celebration. We don't know if you know that, Franzlo, but we are, which is super exciting for us. It'll be our first one. I have a list, but I haven't
Pull the trigger.
bought any of the tickets yet. I haven't pulled the trigger because it's expensive, lah.
Yeah.
Especially if you have more than one. But to answer your question, I know there are a lot of people who are going. Like Manny Jacinto's going to be there, and Diego Luna, Mads Mikkelsen is going to be there. Oscar Isaac has been announced. Alan Tudyk, Rosario Dawson, all great. But for me right now at the moment, I want like a photo op with Anthony Daniels.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just me. Also, I feel like, okay, so I've interviewed Rosario Dawson before. I feel like there are opportunities to maybe speak to these people in a professional sense. That kind of makes me feel less interested in paying 1,000 ringgit to get a photo up with them. But Anthony Daniels is someone I don't think I will have access to. And then Ahmed Best is going to be there. And I love Ahmed Best. I may not like those prequels, but I think Ahmed Best is a dude. And I would love to like have a chat with Ahmed Best.
It's not something I need in my life.
Oh no, same. I'm not the kind of person that collects photos or autographs.
Yeah, so like I would love the chance for Goggler to interview Mads Mikkelsen or Diego Luna and Oscar Isaac, but I don't know if I need a photo of Oscar Isaac with me in my life.
Same. I'm not going to put it up on my wall.
Yeah, and you know what it is? This is my biggest thing. I've never been to a celebration before. I've been to cons before. I've been to conventions before. But dude, Star Wars Celebration are short days. They're business hours days. They open at 9, they end at 6.
I think that's a Japanese thing, dude.
And I'm sure it's a Japanese thing. My thing is this. Do I really want to spend 2-3 hours standing in line? One, I don't need it in my life. And two, I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If I'm walking around the convention and I see Anthony Daniels, I'd wave, I'd shout, hey, C3PO, you the best. But like, I don't need a photo. I don't need to stand in line for a photo with him, I think.
At Kailash Laxman asks, so one of the front runners for the Best Movie Award in this year's Oscars is The Brutalist. However, this movie has been under a lot of scrutiny, especially since there were bits in it which involved the use of AI. Where do you guys stand on this? Personally, I think AI is as much a tool as CGI, in that it just aids the process and makes the movie look better and perhaps even helps with the story flow. Surely this is also an avenue for more jobs in the industry for people who know how to operate these tools. Why do you think this movie is getting so much stick? Do you think it's deserved? And do you think this should impact its Oscar chances in any way? Side note, I really want to watch this movie. Any idea if it's going to be out in Malaysia anytime soon? So, second part of the question first. Nope. The Brutalist is not coming to Malaysia. However, there is a confirmed screening date in Singapore, which is, I think, later this month in February. I know I want to watch it, and I want to watch it in the cinema. I want to experience that intermission as well. I haven't experienced an intermission since watching a movie in India. Also, can I just say, white people, man, like there is so much commentary about this fucking intermission. And I'm just like, there are countries in the world where intermissions are completely normal. Don't get so excited as if it's something so revolutionary.
Yeah, my only concern about going to Singapore to watch this is, are there cinemas good enough to see it in? Like, I want to watch it on a massive screen. And if I can't watch it on a massive screen, I'd rather just watch it at home.
Well, so yes, in the sense that if they're showing it at the projector on Orchard, it uses an older cinema.
Okay.
And the good thing about the older cinemas is that the older cinemas have massive fucking screens.
Okay, maybe.
That's where I saw Strange Darling, and that's where I saw The Substance. So, yes, those screens are big, definitely worth it. As for the AI stuff, Kailash, you're absolutely right. Your assessment is correct. When CGI first started going mainstream, there was all of this conversation about how CGI was going to replace actors and actors are not going to be necessary and look what George Lucas is doing and blah, 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 blah. And of course, none of that happened. Now, I totally agree. I do realize AI is a completely different beast. But the things they used it in with regards to The Brutalist is, as you say, as a tool. And I think it is the same thing that an audio editor would use or a CGI artist would use. It's just that AI is a tool that is so new and threatening at the moment. But as you say, when more people become experts, when it becomes an industry, when people get paid to use this, and you know what? You need experts to use these tools. Bahir and I have access to a lot of AI. God knows we can't do that shit because we don't know how to use that tool. In the same way, if you give me Photoshop versus giving Photoshop to like an artist, you're going to get two completely different products, right? And I think AI is the same.
I also want to bring up something that I find most hilarious about this argument with regards to The Brutalist and its use of AI. Yes, they've come out and said they had used it to fix Adrian Brody's
accent?
Hungarian. I don't even know if they actually used it on his voice. I think they used it on his lips, I think was one of the things they said.
Right, okay.
So, okay, fine, fantastic. Okay. On its own, I think not a big deal. I think Kailash, you're absolutely right. However, it's not the first time. Do you remember they did it on The Fall? Not The Fall, on Fall from 2022.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh yes, oh my god, to remove the F word.
Yes, hi. I also believe they used it on Fall. I think they even tried doing it to change it into a different language.
Yes, they did. I remember watching that video.
So the only real difference here is because The Brutalist is an Oscar-nominated film. Because Fall was a shitty film that very few people saw, and they didn't care that you used AI on that.
But also, I think it's incredibly hypocritical for Hollywood to go down on this movie in such a way, given that it was an indie production with very little money that was rejected by almost every studio. And I think these guerrilla filmmakers need to do whatever it takes to get their movie out there, and they're trying to save as much money as possible.
Yeah, but I also read the article from the editor when he was talking about it, and he was saying that it's because Hungarian is a difficult language. So would I want to watch Adrian Brody essentially murder the Bahasa Malaysia language because I didn't want anybody with AI touching it. No, I want the best version possible. Would I notice the difference? Of course not. However, if a Hungarian was to tell me that this is accurate, I'd be like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Does it take away from Adrian Brody's performance? Probably not. Does it take away from Adrian Brody's commitment to doing a film that he couldn't get down a difficult accent? Probably not. The guy lost so much weight for The Pianist that he was, it was like, this guy, you cannot question his commitment, right? It's the point I'm trying to make. So I have no issues with this. I think it's fine. But what am I to know lah? I'm some Melayu guy in Malaysia. I don't think it's a big deal. I think you're right. I think for me, it's that reference to the 2022 movie Fall that they've used it there, and it didn't give that movie the positive bump it was hoping for, but somehow it's giving The Brutalist, an Oscar-nominated film, a negative look on the film. I think is bullshit lah.
I don't think it's going to affect its chances, though. I think the vast majority of voters are not going to give a shit. Yeah. I think the Emilia Perez thing is a different story.
I saw one or two headlines and posts from a friend about The Substance having problems as well. I don't know. It's going to be a shit show of an Oscar run, and I think that'd be fantastic for the rest of us.
Yep.
At Brendan Ho Shengwen asks, with the release of the new Final Destination Bloodlines trailer, which death from the Final Destination series still gives you nightmares or PTSD to this day? For me, it has to be the logs.
The logs, right?
The logs. You know what it is as well? I think because we're Malaysians and we see those kind of lorries carry those things a lot here on our roads. Also because, you know, those guys are underpaid and overworked and probably on some stimulant to get them through the third 12-hour shift of that week. Man, those logs.
Yeah, the logs. Yeah. But in general, so, I mean, Final Destination Bloodlines comes out this year. I had no idea there were that many movies. There are 6 Final Destination movies. I haven't seen all of them, but I do enjoy them when I watch them only because of these deaths. And I think the Final Destination Bloodlines trailer is absolutely fantastic because it shows off. The whole trailer is just one death, right?
Right.
And it's very, very cool. I love the amount of attention to detail they put in that. Because for me, the biggest disappointment in these slasher, horror, thriller things is when the deaths are boring. And I'm just like, no, come on, put your back into it. Do something cool. My favorite death, I think, is, and I can't remember which movie this is from. I don't know if it's from the first movie. Is it the first death? The one in the bathroom. And I think what happens is, it's all of the close calls. And you don't know what's going to kill him. And I think that's the same with all of the deaths, right? And even in the Bloodlines trailer, there are all of these close calls. And you're like, oh, is it going to be the fan? Is it going to be the creaky fan that's going to, like, the blades are going to fly off and cut off his head? What's going to happen, right? That's the setup. That's the tension that I love in these movies.
This is one of those things I didn't think I'd ever say. But the Final Destination series is like it's like gonzo porn. You're not really there for the story. Just give me the action.
Exactly.
That's all you want.
Exactly.
At Rabbit Hop asks, it has been a while since a Goggler marathon. Any news for us? Smiley face, tearing laughter, smiley face.
Nothing yet, but only because there haven't been any movies to marathon these last couple of months. But we'll definitely do something this year.
Rabbit Hop, I know what you want. You know what I want. And we tried. We tried to convince WB to do a Lord of the Rings marathon ahead of War of the Rohirrim. They couldn't do it. We know what you want. You know what I want. That's what we wanted. Yeah, we tried. Didn't work.
Coming this year, however, we are going to try for a Mission Impossible marathon.
We're having unofficial discussions with the local distributors about potentially doing some version of a Mission Impossible marathon. Maybe not all movies. Maybe the previous one in the run-up to this one. I would totally still be up for doing an all Mission Impossible marathon over, say, a weekend.
Dude, AMC in the US, I think it's AMC. I don't know if it's AMC. Maybe it's AMC. But I think one of the chains are doing a 48-hour, all 34 movies in the MCU marathon.
Wow.
Over a Saturday and a Sunday.
You know what? I would buy that ticket.
I would.
I might leave and go and take a nap at home.
Sure, during the Incredible Hulk or Eternals for me.
I leave for Black Panther, but so I would buy that ticket. I would buy that ticket in a heartbeat. Like 34 movies at 20 ringgit each is a lot though. It's about 700 ringgit though.
At Ellen Tan SL asks, since there is mention of Paradise in the Instagram image, will there be a review of it soon? Yes, the review is out. Check it out on the Goggler Podcast. The ending of episode 1 made Paradise a very interesting show indeed. However, it relies heavily on flashbacks to fill in the blanks and move the story forward, which is kind of annoying. I remember hearing from one of your podcasts that you dislike the overuse of flashbacks. What do you think about this show then? So, Alan, here's what we're going to do. This might be annoying for you as well, but we're going to flash back to our Paradise podcast and ask you to go listen to that because we did address your question there and we talk about our dislike of flashbacks and why it's different with regards to Paradise. But needless to say, both Bahir and I are really enjoying the show. We hope you've reached episode 4 as well, which is a real stunner.
I think the big thing here is that Paradise treats its flashbacks differently.
But yeah, check out our podcast. Give us those clicks, motherfucker.
Yeah. Go back and listen to that one. And look, if everybody else listening to this is also curious about Alan's question, then also check out our review of Paradise. Because the show's great.
Damn right.
And our final question for today, Iman Bahari asks, I recently watched Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards. First exposure to both, really. And although I enjoyed Pulp Fiction, I was a bit iffy with the Bastards. My question would be, what are your cinema classics that you think are still great and retain their hype with greater appreciation of past movies? And what are some movies from the yesteryears that you believed to be just okay?
Ooh, good question. Yeah.
Can I do a quick one? So this is sort of the second half of your question. A movie that I think from the yesteryear that had massive hype, but I think is kind of just okay. Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey. I think it was mind-blowing and fantastic for the time because of what Kubrick did during production. However, I think that story became too convoluted for its own good. I'm not blaming Kubrick for the baby thing. The baby thing's in the book. I read the book, But I think Kubrick could have treated that story differently, and I think that would have changed it a lot.
I really like 2001, but it's not even in my top 20. Like, I recognize it for the piece of landmark cinema that it is, and I understand how it's inspired other filmmakers. But as a viewer, you're right, it doesn't even fall in my top 20.
So that was the first title that came to me.
There are a lot of recent titles, like even the ones that we mentioned earlier, things like Nomadland, for example, that I just don't get. I mean, I understand why it's considered a good movie, and I can see why that's interesting. But like best movie, like amazing, incredible landmark of cinema, I don't know.
I think Nomadland was a good movie. Was it the best movie? I would hard fucking disagree.
Yeah, same with Power of the Dog. I was like, did none of these people watch Brokeback Mountain? Like, what's happening?
It's a beautiful film, great performances.
Fucking
but
boring,
not special. Yeah, boring as shit, but it's not special, right? Like, you would want your Oscar-nominated films to be special. It needs to be an 8 or 9 in terms of production, story, performance, everything.
I think there are a lot of cinema classics that retain the hype. I mean, I think Citizen Kane is phenomenal. I think Casablanca...
Citizen Kane is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I think Casablanca is fucking phenomenal. I mean, these movies have stood the test of time. They are still great. Go watch E.T. again and you understand why it's great. Go watch Jaws again and you know why it became the first ever summer blockbuster. Like, all of these movies kind of hold on to that hype.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble thinking of an old classic movie that is considered great that has somehow lost its luster. Like, if you look at, the AFI list of like the best 1,000 movies or 100 movies or whatever, I look at that list and I'm like, oh, actually, yeah.
You're
I
right.
kind of agree with most of these. Like, they've done something in cinema to like change it or push it forward. It could be technology, it could be art, it could be style, it could be writing, but all of them have a unique, interesting quality that make them stand out.
The Usual Suspects, that did a thing that was different, even at the time. American Beauty, I don't know why I'm naming Kevin Spacey movies, but, that was also fantastic.
He was in a lot of good fucking movies.
He was in a lot of great fucking movies. Seven, God
Yeah.
dang,
I'm trying to think of movies that I really liked when they were released, and whether consecutive viewings have made me change my mind. See, the other way is true. There were movies that I have disliked in the past or have been critical of in the past, but then viewing them again has made me change my opinion.
I've got one. I saw the movie late, and of course, because Malaysia at the time, I don't think it ever came to cinemas here. I'm pretty sure it didn't come to cinemas here, so I saw it pretty late. I was never big on Reservoir Dogs.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good movie, and I get the thing about the production thing of like being on a budget and had to be tight and this locked room stuff, but I was never big on it. I thought it was fine. I never got the hype with that movie. I don't get Clerks.
Wow.
Like Imam Bahari, it's not even that I thought Clerks was okay. I just didn't get it. For me, there was and is no redeeming reason to watch that movie other than a young Rosario Dawson and maybe Jay and Silent Bob were funny at the time. Clerks never has done it for me.
I'll tell you what my secret confession is.
Oh, go for it.
I, growing up, really enjoyed the voiceover on Blade Runner.
Oh.
Like, because I was a kid when I first watched that movie.
Sure, of course.
And for me, like, Noah movies, like as a kid, like I think I was like teenager.
Sure.
Like 12, 13 when I watched that movie. And like, I used to love those kind of, the dame walked in.
Yeah.
Like that kind of shit. And so
Yeah,
Blade
yeah.
Runner felt like that, but sci-fi. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
Harrison
yeah,
Ford
yeah.
was doing this voiceover, and I was like, fuck, this is cool. But then it was only later, like only in my 20s, when I watched like the director's ultimate whatever Ridley cut, that I was like, oh, yeah, this is a much better movie.
No, I mean, to be fair, that was the only version that you had access to at the time.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
So I'm not going to sort of cut you down at the knees for that.
That is my secret shame, yes.
More often than not, I think the reason these films keep getting talked about is that they've earned that zeitgeist quality, right? I think
Agreed.
Pulp Fiction, absolutely Imam Bahari, but I think even Inglourious Bastards, I don't know if it has ever crossed into the pantheon of great all-time films. I think it's just outside of it.
Oh no, see, I disagree with that. I think Inglourious and even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I enjoy those movies because of what Tarantino was doing with rooting it in history and then changing things. Because that's what you can do in film and fiction and cinema. Like, not have the Manson murder happen or have them fucking kill Hitler. It's just like, wait, what? Like, I remember watching that and going, he did what now? Like, because it's wishful thinking. And I think that's what cinema should be. And no one does that, like, ever. Like, in no movie do you watch, no piece of historical fiction that you watch is someone going to kill Hitler. And I thought that was a bold and interesting thing to do. And it really stuns the audience, but also plays around with narrative in a very interesting way.
It's almost like what Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is, right? However, with Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, you know what you're coming into. The title says it. You know it's a schlockfest. However, when you're watching Inglourious Bastards and that moment comes up when they kill Hitler, you go, huh? Wait, what? And I think it's because you're not prepared for it.
Yes, but that's why I like it, because
the idea
Inglourious
that they're going to
Basterds
kill a real character, a real
is
person.
supposed to be serious cinema.
Yeah.
And I think that's the pulling the rug from under your feet that I enjoy.
No, you're right. Actually, now that you mentioned it, that's.
I need to watch it
point.
again.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it in years.
I haven't seen it in so long. Yeah.
But Christoph Waltz in that movie is fucking evil. I love
That
him.
was great. It took him a long time to get from under that, I think.
But you know what? Tarantino's a pro-genocide Zionist, so fuck that guy.
You have to remove the art from the artist, Uma.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope that answered your question, Iman Bahari. We digressed quite a bit, but thank you for all of your questions and keep them coming in. You know how to reach out. We're on Instagram on GogglerMY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.